you're always stuck in second gear. When it hasn't been your day, week, your month, or even your year. But I'll be there for you when the rain starts to pour. I'll be there for you like I've been there before. I'll be there for you, 'cause you're there for me too.
How was that for a 1000 sub special? The friends featured in the intro are the remaining 7 unique units of the original Age of Kings. And by the end of this video, you will know their story. Psst, you hear this?
Behold, the horde of Genghis Khan approaches.
The Mangudai has its name from a Mongolian tribe called Mangud. The Mangud fought for Genghis Khan and after his death were part of the Golden Horde and later on formed the core of the Nogai Horde. Sometimes the term Mangudai is also used for the vanguard of the Mongolian army in its entirety. Since the Mongols were not exactly the best at keeping written records, it is not known how the Mangud fought exactly. But it is safe to assume that in some way or another it involved sitting on a horse. Horse archer is an obvious choice, but also other types of cavalry could have come into question. After all, Mangudai is the name of an entire tribe, not just a specific unit. The attack bonus against siege seems like a gameplay decision. I can't think of any historic explanation why Mangudai should be good in breaking sieges. To round up the Mangudai, I want to give you some perspective on how mind-blowingly huge and invasive the Mongol Empire was. You might know that they controlled basically all Central Asia, China and pushed all the way to Poland. But did you know that they also attacked this island in Croatia? That they had a garrison in Gaza? The Mongols tried to invade Japan twice and were famously stopped by typhoon twice, but it's not so well known that they also defeated the Burmese Bagan Empire. And what I find ultra crazy, those riders from Central Asia even invaded East Java. From Japan to the Levant, from Poland to Java, all within what could be the lifespan of a human, and completely without WhatsApp. Ah, the mighty war elephant. All game designers agree. Every history strategy game needs some elephantitos. But did the Persians even use war elephants? And if yes, how? To answer this, we must first find out what the Persians in Age of Empires 2 even are. What does Wikipedia suggest? The Persian Empire usually refers to the Achaemenid Empire 550 to 330 BC. That would be the timeline of Age of Empires 1. So the Achaemenids can't be it. What else can you offer, Wikipedia? The Persian Empire may also refer to the Parthian Empire, the Sasanian Empire, the Tahirid, the Alawid, the Safarid, the Zamanid, the Ziyarid, the Buyid, the Ghaznavid, the Seljuk, the Khwarezmian, the Ilkhanid, the Mossavid dynasty, the Timurid Empire, the Safarid Iran, the Afsharid Iran, the Zand dynasty, the Qajar Iran, the Pahlavi Iran. Okay, this doesn't get us anywhere. Fortunately, the in-game history section has a description of every Sith. This is what it says about the Persians. There we have it. It's the Sasanian Empire. That fits because the Sassanids are one of the few that actually used elephants in warfare. On campaign, elephants had mostly logistical roles, for example construction and pulling of siege equipment. They were also used as an elevated platform for archers or for the commander to see and be seen. Further, elephants were a form of psychological warfare, and yes, elephants were sometimes used in melee combat, but that was not as common as games portray. To sum up, the war elephant is somewhat misrepresented as slow armored melee behemoth. I'm also not happy with the model. There are accounts of elephant armor, but certainly not chainmail on the ears. Speaking of ears, these are the ears of an African elephant. The Sasanians, however, used Indian elephants. That's the final nail in the coffin for getting only 2 stars. Mameluke is the name for slave soldiers in the Muslim world. These were often Christians of East European or Caucasian origin, but could be from any defeated tribe. Subjects were enslaved at child's age and converted to Islam to serve as elite soldiers and imperial guards. Despite starting their career as slaves, Mamluks managed to grow their influence on and beyond the battlefield. They had a high social status and could rise to high ranks such as general, emir or even sultan, up to the point that Mamluks founded and ruled over multiple empires, such as the Egyptian Mamluk Sultanate or the Delhi Sultanate, which you can play in AoE4. From slave to sultan, truly living the Arabian dream. In battle, Mamluks used all sorts of weapons, lances, bows, axes, and curved so-called Mamluk swords, later also gunpowder. Most often Mameluks did fight from horseback. What they definitely never did, throw scimitars while sitting on a camel. Completely bogus. And while we're at it, the unit model shows a dark brown camel with fluffy fur, clearly a Bactrian camel. Saracens, however, were only in contact with Arabian camels. Getting to every 10-year-old's favorite, the Teutonic Knight. This is a name for members of the so-called Teutonic Order, a religious/military enterprise founded to protect Christians.
God, stop it, please.
Founded to protect Christians and establish hospitals in the Holy Land. At least that was the idea in the beginning. Under the pretext of Christianization, the Teutonic Order invaded and subjugated pagan territories in the Baltics and attacked the pagan duchy of Lithuania, because you know, Deus Vult. The Teutonic Order established a state in the taken territories and secured it with numerous castles, such as Marienburg, their headquarters. Now to the unit itself. Just as every other knight of their time, Teutonic Knights used state-of-the-art armor, mail and later plate. And like other knights, they primarily fought with lance from horseback. And this is why the unit is so slow, it is the only dismounted knight in the game. In reality though, Teutonic Knights wouldn't go to battle without their horsey, and also were not impervious to melee damage. And now I'll blow your minds. If you think the Teutonic Order is super cool and want to be part of it, good news, you can, at least if you're a nun or a priest. Because the official Teutonic Order, founded in 1190, still exists. Nowadays it's a philanthropical organization that runs nursing homes and guest houses. On a trip to Vienna or Rome, you can stay at the Order. The Teutons have arrived in modernity, and with that come modern problems, like having to call out countless online wannabe imposters. Quote, the real Teutonic Order doesn't recruit on Facebook. So, after a violent past, the Teutonic Order has found back to its initial mission of caring for others. These are the Teutonic Knights of today, with coats, crosses and slow on foot. And I think it couldn't be more wholesome. Janissaries or Janissary, Turkish for new soldiers, were the elite infantry of the Ottoman Empire and the Sultan's household troops. Similarly to Mamelukes, Janissaries were recruited by abducting children of subjugated Christian territories, primarily from the Balkans. And, similarly to Mamelukes, the Janissary was a prestigious title. Despite essentially coming from slavery, they were paid, admired for their discipline and camaraderie, and reached high ranks, even that of a Grand Vizier. There were even accounts of Jews pretending to be Christians just so that they could enroll as Janissaries, and Turkish families paid to get their sons into the Janissary Corps. They have one more thing in common with Mamluks. Both haven't been given the most accurate weapon in the game. Yes, Janissaries adapted gunpowder weapons quite early, however, for most of their history, Janissaries were elite archers. During game development, the Janissary was actually planned to be an archer in Castle Age that can be upgraded to a gunpowder unit in Imperial Age. That would have been historically excellent, but this idea was tossed pre-release. You know what else was tossed? The traditional Janissary head. The developers decided that with the head, the unit looks like a Ku Klux Klan member. As a child, the unit icon always confused me in another way. To me, it looked like a father holding a baby in his arms. And a final nugget of nagging. The unit is too hairy for Ottoman Castle Age. Until late 16th century, Janissaries were forbidden to grow beards. Let's summarize. The Janissary should be a clean-shaved archer in Castle Age that evolves into a bearded gunner in Imperial Age, and both with head, please. Oh boy, talking about the Berserk gives me anxiety like a dentist appointment. Both regenerate health. Oh wait, that doesn't make too much sense. The problem is, it's just so difficult to separate fact from myth. But let's get over with it. So, the name Berserk is a composite of two old Nordic words. Bear most likely means bear like the animal, and serk, which means skirt or surcoat. That would imply that they wore bearskins. But bear could also be translated as bear, as in not wearing any clothes, and then Berserk would mean bear shirt, or in other words, man fighting topless. Oh, I'm getting Road Raider flashbacks. The Berserk is shrouded by a cloud of myths, which describe them as elite warriors, fighting first row in a trance-like berserker young fury, howling, biting their shields, feeling neither pain nor fear. Aside from being elite warriors, probably none of that is true. According to the Ditches guy, Berserks and the closely associated wolfskin warriors Ulfhednar were normally operating units equipped with the armor and weapons of their time. They were often used as shock troops or royal bodyguards and grouped themselves in brotherhoods called Männerbünde. Yes, they had their rights and traditions, but nothing superhuman. Only centuries later, poets attributed them with these fantasy features. It's a bit disappointing that AoE2 in that regard is more mythical than Age of Mythology. There, the Norse train historically correct units like Huskars and Jarls. In Age of Empires, the Norse have the problematic name Vikings, train berserks with horned helmets, and the Huskar is given to the Goths. Longboats, which are actually called long ships, were built from overlapping wood planks and woolen sails. They had a lot going for them. As correctly represented in the game, longships were very fast and maneuverable. They are symmetrical, so they could move forward and backwards, very useful to navigate within fjords, rivers or between icebergs. Their light design and flat keel allowed them to move in water depths as low as 1 meter and to land on beaches. They were so light that the crew could even carry them over land. To save further weight, longships had no benches. While rowing, the oarsmen sat on chests containing their personal belongings, and having no cabins meant that the crew was sleeping in two-man sleeping bags in the hull. Longships also had no toilets. Everything outside the ship was the toilet. And like that, the Vikings were going places. You can see here that they often sailed up a river, carried the longships distances over land into another river, and followed it to new seas. But why all the risk and effort? There are many motivators that all can be summarized under the term booty. It is a serious historical hypothesis that a main driver for Viking raids was the search for wives, but many voyages were also simply for exploration or trading. And of course, the real treasure is the friendship they've made on the way. This was the tier list at the end of the previous video. Before they add the new ones, 2 corrections. The Throwing Axeman was supposed to be a 3-star unit, but on the tier list Johnny snuck into 4-star row. My mistake. And shame on you for not pointing it out. What many pointed out though is that the samurai without horse, lance or bow isn't worthy of 5 stars. And I agree. Deal with it, weeps. Now we add the next 7 to the list. Notably, the Mangudai lands on top and the Mameluke joins the vote in the basement. Thank you all so much for the encouragement. You are the motivator for continuing making these videos, and if you think this channel deserves more love, please share with a friend, it would mean a lot to me. With that, the Age of Kings tier list is completed. From now on it can get only more funky, because next are the bad boys from the Conquerors expansion.